Okay, so we're going to talk about Waterwise landscaping tonight. And so kind of as an overview, we're going to kind of look at water usage in general across the state of Idaho. We'll talk about water conservation practices, and then we'll look at some products and some plants that can help you conserve water. The new report is just coming out, but they don't have the state data out for the new report. So the latest data was from the 2015 report. That Idaho is the highest per capita user in the nation at 182 gallons per person per day, which is 102 gallons per person per day higher than the national average. We use a lot of water, but this takes in all of our water usage, and where a lot of our water is for agriculture, that's where a lot of that comes into. But if we kind of break it down and look at it, our average was 17,737 million gallons a day in 2015, which puts us the third highest water user in the nation. But if you look at most of that water usage was for irrigation. So out of that 17.7 million gallons, 15.2 of that was for irrigation. And then they've even got it broken down where you can look at what type of water was pulled out. So I pulled the groundwater, which was used a lot for irrigation. And I mean, that's 91% of our groundwater withdrawals went to irrigation. And then our public supply is only 276 million gallons a day, which is 89% of groundwater withdrawals. So we go through a lot of water in Idaho. If you look at the EPA ran a bunch of numbers and a bunch of tests, and they figure about 50% of all outdoor water usage is lost due to wind evaporation or runoff from overwatering. And so if you take all of that water that we've been using and you figure that all of that outdoor water, we've lost 50% of that already to evaporation, wind, and runoff. Here's a chart that kind of shows by county the water usage. And so you can see where our heavy agriculture areas are, where we use a lot of that water for our agriculture usage. And so, I mean, you see eastern Idaho, southern Idaho, over into the Treasure Valley, where the bulk of our agriculture is in the state. That's where our main water usage is. And I mean, between last year and even going into this year with the water issues that we're facing in the state, it's becoming a bigger and bigger issue on our water usage. In the county office where I work, upstairs from me is where the Idaho Department of Water Resources office is. And so I went up and talked to them, and they're like, well, we really don't look at the reservoir data. We have a different map that they look at. So they gave me access to that map, which is this map is the one that they're really looking at on where our snowpack is sitting and everything. And so this is the map that they look at, wanting to see where we're at, because this gives our snow water equivalent. And according to this, they're like, we're looking actually really good for this year for our water based on the snowpack we've had. They're like, they were a little concerned in January, February when we had that dry spell, but the storms that we've had lately have really put us into a good spot. So we are sitting good for our water, but they said the key month that they really watch is what this map looks like in April, because that's when their water year ends, and that's when they make all their predictions, is based off of what that April looks like. When dealing with landscapes and gardens, we've got lots of plants. Well, plants require water, but how much water? So if we look at it, turf requires 12 inches deep in that soil once to twice a week. If we're hot, it wants it twice a week. Trees and shrubs want 18 to 24 inches deep in the soil every 1 to 2 weeks. And then your flowers and vegetables, it depends on which ones you're growing, but most of them fall in that 6 to 12 inches a week. Some of them get up to that 16-inch deep, but you're looking at water that needs to be put down to keep these plants alive. So if we look at just on lawns, we'll pull lawns out this is some data that they pulled, that the average size lawn at 20 minutes a day for 7 days, that's most people are watering their lawns every day, uses about 12,000 to 15,000 gallons annually in the United States just for watering turf grass. So if we look at our Kentucky bluegrass, it uses more water than any other plant in the landscape consistently. It has the highest maintenance input cost. I talked to one of our ag economists and we ran some rough numbers and figured out that to have a lawn with, when you look at what it costs to water it, what it costs to fertilize it, what it costs to mow it, you're looking at about $35 a square foot for your cost to have that grass. And then our big thing is we're using a cool season grass mix in our lawns that want to go dormant when it gets hot, but that's when everybody wants to be out on their lawns and they want it nice and green. And so we're actually stressing our lawns to keep them green during the hot part of the summer. So there's a number of different products that have come out that you can use for irrigation to kind of help cut your water usage. So I just kind of pulled off the top brands, their websites, just kind of some of the things that they have. They've got some pretty high-tech stuff now where you can actually run your sprinkler system from your smartphone, just like all the farmers are running all of their irrigation systems. You can do the same thing with your lawn. You can hook it to weather data, a weather station, and actually it will adjust your sprinkler system based on the local weather. So, I mean, there a lot of their new products you can see on this one from Rainbird, it says saves up to 50% in water. And so they've made a lot of changes to the products to help us conserve water. But this little symbol right here, any product that has that symbol on it, I mean, it can be a faucet, a toilet, a water heater, any outdoor water system or product. If it has this WaterSense symbol from the EPA, it's been through testing and it's guaranteed to save you up to 30% or more on your water usage. And so you'll start seeing, if you look for it, you'll start seeing this WaterSense symbol on a lot of the products that are out on the market today. Other things you can do is look at different conservation practices that we can apply that can also help us to save water. It does take more planning on our landscape and our gardens to plan things out so we can actually maximize the usage of our water. Grouping your plants by their watering needs. Having purpose turf, and we'll talk about each of these in a little more detail as we go on, but do you really need all that turf, or could you change your landscape around and cut out some of that turf and put other plants in there, some native plants, putting into mulch in those areas to actually help hold the moisture. So different things we can do. Using mulch is a really good conservation practice to help hold moisture. Well, a few years ago, I actually brought my moisture probe home when I was playing around with it in my yard, just seeing how deep the water was. And I'm like, well, I just put all this mulch down in these beds last fall. I just want to see how well it does. I mean, I was going around my lawn and I was getting anywhere from 3 inches to 12 inches deep. I went 6 inches off the lawn into that mulch and I buried it clear to the handle, and it's a 42-inch rod. And so that mulch is really effective at holding moisture in the ground. And that was in the spring. And then educating people. So as master gardeners, being able to take the information that's out there and educate people on what they can do to actually help conserve water. So one of the things that I like to do is do an evaluation of an existing landscape, or if you're looking at putting in a landscape in an area, do an evaluation of the site and looking at different things. And so assess the landscape areas for function and use. What do you want to do where? And then that way you can start planning out, well, this is going to be a high use area. This is going to be a low use area. So then you can start looking at, well, I'm going to want to have more plants looking good here because I plan on entertaining in this spot. So this will be a high water use area. Over here, back by the service area, this will be a lower water use area. And so you can actually start laying out the landscape by water usage, and then you can start grouping your plants by to fit the amount of water usage that you assign to these areas. Assess your irrigation system. If you have an irrigation system, you need to go through it occasionally and make sure that it's functioning properly. So a lot of the products that have come out in the last few years can use a lot less water than some of the older products that some of the old systems have. So I just went through and abandoned my whole sprinkler system at my house last year and put a whole new one in because I had changed the landscape and things around, following this guideline that I've been talking about, looking at different use areas. And so I redid the entire sprinkler system. I'm down to where I only have 3 zones of actually sprinkler heads that are watering turf. And then I have 6 zones of drip to cover the rest of the landscape. So replace spray heads with drip for trees, shrubs, and flowers. Drip is so much more efficient on water usage, and you can use a lot less water and have better and healthier plants by using drip, particularly for trees, shrubs, and even flower beds, and even in your garden. Update the sprinklers, nozzles, controllers. A lot of the products that are out there now, I've been going through changing out a lot of nozzles. Even at our demonstration gardens at the county building, I've been going through changing out the nozzles from the old nozzles that were used to some of the newer ones because they use much less water. And so just doing that is a way you can actually conserve water. Any exposed ground that you have, any type of mulch that you can put down to help hold that moisture is going to help you a lot with holding that moisture in the ground and having it available for much longer. Trees and shrubs are good plants to have. There's a number of native trees and shrubs that once they get established, they can handle some drought issues and drought situations year after year. But when water is plentiful, they know how to use the water when it's there. And then there's a lot of different native plants. So one of the things that I really like is from Xeriscape, they have what they call the 7 principles of Xeriscape as you're planning it out. And I really like the way that they focus on water conservation in here. So you want to have a plan and a design from the beginning. So you know what you're working with. You can start grouping things together, planning things out, and maximize the use of the space that you have and the amount of water that's available. This one I really like is having practical turf area. If you don't need all of that turf grass, cut it back. My kids keep getting on me because I keep taking out more and more lawn, and I'm like, there's a park a block down the street. You can go play at the park. I'm like, I need this space to grow food. Use the appropriate plants. So if you don't have a lot of space or you have a lot of space, use the plants appropriately to fill up that space or to maximize the amount of space that you have. And then whatever you can do to improve the soil, adding that organic matter, putting those mulches down is helping to build your soil. And the healthier your soil is, the more moisture that it's able to hold. I'm utilizing those mulches to help hold that moisture that we get over the winter time in the ground much longer and make it available to plants. And then as you're irrigating efficiently, maximizing the water that is available, and then maintain it properly. So one of the ways you can do it is you can convert a lot of your landscape to native plants. So some recommendations that I would say is start small. Pick one spot or one area or one flower bed and say, okay, this is where I'm going to start. And then you can actually start there. You'll realize that once you start with this spot, you really like it. So you'll move to the next spot. So you may do multiple small spots in one year, but understand that as you do these things, you're going to have to make some changes to your irrigation system or your irrigation practices. And then do a landscape assessment for your water and your usage. And so if you've got a spot that you're having issues with watering, that might be the spot to start there. What plants can I put here to utilize this space and get the best use out of it and use the least amount of water? So the best way to do it is create irrigation zones. So it's like, okay, these plants need this much water. This native plant over here, it's going to need less water. It needs water to get established, but after time, it's going to need less and less water. And so starting to group your plants by their watering needs makes it easier to lay out when you redo the irrigation system. You can actually, okay, here's my high water use area, my mid water use area, my low water use area. And you've grouped it by the plants and your needs that you have there. Okay, so a little activity, converting an existing landscapes. Here is a picture of my yard. I live on a corner lot, so my property doesn't even come to that spruce tree that's on the right-hand side. There's a fence before you get to that spruce tree that cuts off for my property. So I don't even come to that spruce tree. So I don't have much space on this would be the south side of my house. Here's a picture taken from the west side. So it kind of shows you what's on the north side. And so you can see that I don't have a lot of space. You can see that there's 3 big maple trees on the property. And so trying to maximize this space for usage and growing a garden. I don't have a lot of space to grow the garden. And so we kind of did this. These pictures were taken in January of 2023. And then I've got some pictures. So this is taken yesterday. What I've done is the only spot that I actually had the maximum amount of sunshine that I needed to run a garden was right up front next to the road, but I have really poor soil up there. So you can see that I put in planter boxes up along there and that's where the bulk of my garden is in those planter boxes. I think there's 12 planter boxes in that area there. That's my spot I had available for garden. You can see that one planter box is kind of right next to that lilac. So I do my broccoli. I've got strawberries in there. I do some of my cool season plants that can handle those shady situations from that lilac during the summertime as it shades that. And so just kind of maximizing it. You can kind of see we did put metal edging in. When we bought the place, it was all lawn. There was no flower beds. And so all around the house, we've got beds. So all the lawn is actually in the middle and everything around the outside is beds. So here's looking from the other side, you can kind of see that how we've taken out a lot of the lawn. And so there's very little grass area. And so the grass area, we've got the sprinklers in there. In the other beds, I've got a mixture of native flowers, medicinal plants. Up around the house, you'll see some shrubs there. They're all native shrubs. There's currants, syringa. I've got a number of native perennials in there. And so kind of maximizing the space that I have, growing those things that fit my needs. I've even occasionally I'll go out and I'm like, well, I've run out of space in my planter boxes, so I still want to plant these vegetables. I just start going and finding places in the flower beds where there's really nothing planted there. So I've had sweet potatoes, I've had garlic, I've had gourds, I've had winter squash, I've had pumpkins, zucchini planted in amongst my native plants in my flower beds. And so I'm in the process right now of getting the drip put out for these areas. But the other thing with it is as I'm doing this conversion, I've got people like, well, hey, now your yard, you've taken out this much grass, you're putting in these flowering plants. Well, now you're benefiting pollinators. And it's like, well, you're doing water conservation. And so I'm hitting all these different aspects just by making the little changes. But the one biggest thing is the amount of lawn that we did has really cut back our water usage. So here is Dr. Steve Love's yard where he went in and just took out spots of his lawn and put in a bunch of native flower plantings. You can see in this picture, you can see some fruit trees back there in his lawn, but he just kind of went in and took out these areas. And so, I mean, it's really easy to say, okay, I'm just gonna work in these spots. I'm gonna convert this spot, and then maybe I'll come over here and convert a different spot. And so it's really easy to incorporate these native plants in there. You just have to understand that once they get established, they're gonna need less water and you have to plan accordingly. So kind of overview of what we've talked about, understanding our water usage, accessing the landscape, making the improvements and upgrades with the new products and things that are out there. Group your plants by their water usage.
The weather station response of my watering system, it goes off the weather forecast, and I don't get rain at my place when they say I'm supposed to be getting rain. And so I turn that off and I just watch it myself, and I water it when my plants tell me they need to be watered. But sometimes that system will say, yeah, we're going to delay you for a day. And I've received absolutely no water from a storm that passed through the area. So anyway.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I've had people that I've worked with here that haven't. It's like when the storm comes through, it's like, well, it hit this spot, but it missed everywhere else. And so if you're not in the spot that it came through, it will adjust your system.
Their technology isn't based on the type of storms we have out here in the Intermountain West.
So if you're going to have turf, there's been a lot of research done with using some of the native grasses, native turf grasses, and mixing cool and warm season grasses together of native mixes. And it actually makes a really nice lawn, takes much less water. You can get by with 3 to 5 waterings a year and still have a green lawn. The cool thing about it is having those cool and warm season grasses mixed together. It actually, in the spring, you'll get those cool season grasses will come up and establish really well. You'll have a great looking lawn, use very little water. And then when they want to go dormant is about the time that your warm season grasses are going to come on. And those warm season grasses are going to carry you through the summer till fall. And when our temperatures start cooling off, then your cool season grasses come back in the fall. And so you can actually have a really healthy looking lawn using native grasses. The seeding rate's a little bit more because most of our native grasses are bunch grasses and not rhizomatous grasses. And so you have to plant them a little thicker, but they do make a really nice lawn area. It does like to be mowed a little higher, but you can have a really nice looking lawn during the summertime and only have to water it like 3 to 5 times, depending on how much moisture we get during the growing season.
And your point on mowing is important too. The longer the blade, the deeper the root, the more drought resistant your lawn's going to be. And so I mow mine about as high as I can get my mower. When I cut mine off, it's just below 4 inches. And I let it get up to 5 to 6 inches and I mow it off again.
And then you'll also find in that situation, you actually have less weeds in your lawn because your grass is out competing your weeds. You've got such a thick shade canopy with that grass that the weeds have a harder time getting established in that situation also.
I try to put down 1 inch of water once a week on my lawn. Well, once in irrigation. So once a week is during the hot part of the summer.
Yep.
During the spring, I may be 14 to 21 days between irrigation, depending on the rainfall and the temperatures and the wind.